I'm Paige Summers. Here's what's coming up on the programme today.
Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has announced several key measures in his spring budget in the Commons, with two major uplifts being put to childcare and pensions.
Today's budget has been seen as a critical moment for the Conservative Party as they look to win the next election. MPs call for the ban of electroconvulsive therapy, as others argue it's a life-saving treatment.
Do that. It just seems to me not offering people that way out of the hell of severe prolonged depression seems to me inhumane.
Junior doctors are demanding a 35% pay rise as they strike for a third day in a row.
Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has several new measures in this year's spring budget to grow the UK economy and help people through the cost of living crisis. Our political reporter Kieran Bradley covers this for us.
The spring budget has been dubbed the Back to Work budget, largely focused on the growth of the economy by putting in measures to reduce public debt and halve inflation. Tony Syme is an economic lecturer who hopes to see that there will be much needed help for families.
We hope we're going to see is in terms of the fuel support. The £66 a month that households currently get, that will end. But if the cap on budgets is going to be maintained in terms of energy bills at £2,500 per year, at least that's some help. We're expecting that to stay in place. But after that, it's something to help families more longer term. So there's a lot of talk about free childcare for ages 1 and 2 that will certainly help parents a great deal.
Social policy lecturer David Beck believes the government is in a difficult position in terms of the cost of living crisis.
If I remember rightly, the last budget, the autumn statement by Jeremy Hunt, narrowly avoided or helped the country to narrowly avoid sliding into recession. The Office for Budget Responsibility have since looked at the data and have been able to argue that the UK is on a trajectory to come out of a deep financial crisis, but not a recession.
Beth Fletcher is a senior officer at Langworthy Community Centre who told me she will be looking at the government to extend the duty on fuel to help residents.
We will be looking at the Chancellor extending the duty on fuel and making sure that that is still available for medium to longer term, while the people in this community and the people across the country still are being impacted by the cost in living crisis.
The Chancellor has confirmed several key measures in the budget. This includes an extension on the energy price guarantee and capping annual household bills at £2,500.
A cross-party group of MPs have called for an urgent ban on the use of electroconvulsive therapy. Electroconvulsive therapy, also known as ECT, is when an electrical current is sent through the brain to relieve mental health problems. Seamus O'Hanlon reports on both sides of this highly controversial issue.
As someone who lives with bipolar disorder, the topic of electric convulsive therapy is a difficult and emotional subject. MPs are now calling for an urgent review into ECT to understand why the discussion has become so polarised and to see if there is any consensus on this sensitive issue.
It just seems to me not offering people that way out of the hell of severe prolonged depression seems to me inhumane, to be honest.
What are your thoughts on the small group of MPs who are currently calling for a ban or a pause on ECT use?
And having read through the article in The Independent, my impression is that they are linked in with the group of people who are trying to get ECT, putting pressure to try and get ECT banned.
I'm not entirely convinced that consent is happening as it should, based on anecdotes that I've read. That patients as well as relatives are being told of the possible long-term harm that it can do. So that's essentially why. I think we are not probably taking into account the very many reports of long-term harm that have come from ECT use.
Of course, there have been problems about the how ECT is being presented in the press. There's a very interesting paper, for example, showing about how ECT is being shown in films. And in nearly all cases, it's been shown for the wrong indication and being given in a way that is not how it's given today.
We need to find better evidence for its use and benefits, and also be more open and transparent with end users, really, regarding the procedure.
I think I'm all for safeguards, and I think it's a matter of getting it so there's proportion. I think the new proposals, I think, which are that there should be, if somebody isn't able to give consent and lacks capacity, that there should be a second opinion. I think that's completely reasonable. You know, I think we should be transparent about what we're doing, about what we're giving, and give everybody the right to have their full say.
Wow. My sister's a psychotherapist, and I think she'd find that really interesting. Do you find it interesting, Adam?
It is a really interesting topic, to be fair. I think it needs to be talked about more.
After 3 days of strikes, junior doctors will be going back to work tomorrow, but their dispute with the government is far from over. Nick Pinnington went to Manchester Royal Infirmary to find out more.
Junior doctors say that over the last 15 years, their salary has been cut in real terms by a quarter. Now they want their money back. They are demanding a 35% pay rise, and that's something which the Department for Health and Social Care, who declined a request for an interview, say is unaffordable. Health Secretary Steve Barclay expressed his disappointment at the British Medical Association's decision to reject the government's last-minute offer to enter negotiations. In a statement, he said, "I want to find a fair settlement which recognises the crucial role of junior doctors and the wider economic pressures facing the UK." And on patient safety, the Health Secretary made this admission. "We have been prioritising emergency, urgent and critical care, but there will inevitably be some disruption for patients." Junior doctors, however, say that sort of disruption has become the norm.
But every single day of the year I see patients suffering in the NHS due to the lack of funding, due to poor quality care, due to not enough staff. I work in A&E a lot of the time, and there's patients who often are waiting 12 hours in corridor trolleys. So the government pretends to care about patients on the days that we're on strike, but it clearly doesn't care about patients any other day of the year.
The Prime Minister himself was away in the US this week talking defence, but in an interview with Sky News he made his frustrations over strikes back home clear.
I'm disappointed to see the action by junior doctors. I would urge them and the teachers to come in and have talks with the government in the way that other unions have done, and I'm confident that we can find a way through this.
But those out on strike today feel little sympathy for the government position.
I think what's disappointing is the government expects us to sit back and not say anything after year of pay cuts. I don't want to be out on strike. We'd all much rather be inside doing our job well and treating our patients, but we can't do that whilst our pay is being cut.
Junior doctors will hope that these strikes force the government to make what they see as a serious offer. Whether they will remains to be seen.
And it's not just doctors who are striking today. University staff are back on the picket lines for the 5th week, and police are patrolling the streets in a different way to usual by marching. Our reporter Harriet Wall is joined by a demonstration of hundreds of strikers earlier today.
On the day that a new budget has been released, deafening crowds have gathered in St Peter's Square in solidarity with those who are striking.
Thank you.
Members of this crowd come from all different unions, including those involved with police, universities and the public sector. Yet they all want one thing. They are disputing pay cuts, pension losses and forced redundancies. I spoke to some members of different unions to find out what's going on.
I'm here today mainly to support colleagues who are now in an increasingly difficult situation. Casualisation is absolutely rampant in the university sector. People don't know what they're going to be doing for a job in the next 6 months. Pay has been eroded very long term, but I think probably more important than the pay issue is just the complete lack of job security, the endless scrabbling around assembling little collections of fractional contracts.
The university, at least my university, really trades on its radical history.
PCS organises in all government departments and the public sector bodies that work for the government. and we are on strike today because we are fighting for our pay, our pensions, and to protect jobs and to defend the services, and also begin to roll back the erosion of the living standards of everybody who works for the government. It's not good enough, and we've had enough.
The BBC remains in crisis following its dispute with Gary Lineker. It disrupted sports programming over the weekend. The corporation has apologised for its handling of the situation after the Match of the Day presenter posted a tweet attacking the government's immigration bill. There'll now be a review of rules on impartiality and use of social media by staff. Eleanor Fletcher has more.
Gary Lineker.
Chants from the terraces on the BBC Piazza picketing his place of work in support of Gary Lineker. The BBC suspended the Match of the Day presenter for what it called a breach of its editorial guidelines. For some loyal viewers, the corporation has overstepped the mark.
The man's an individual, he's entitled to his opinion, and he isn't a broadcaster as far as I'm concerned. He's not a journalist, he's a sports commentator, and a very popular one at that, and I think they really got it wrong this time. The world listens to the BBC. It gives honest commentary on things, and I think it's just lost its way.
The BBC's Director General Tim Davie has ordered an independent review of social media guidelines. Political experts say it's important not to bow down to political pressure despite its funding.
They're not controlled by the government, but they are accountable for how they spend the money. So there is an arm's length kind of degree of autonomy. The alternative is sometimes seen as worse. So, for example, you might end up having, the more commercial broadcasters that don't necessarily produce the same quality programmes as the BBC. And BBC is said to kind of compensate for market failure and produce quality and a range of programmes. And if we got rid of the BBC, we might not have that.
Gary's right, Tory's wrong.
Gary's right, Tory's wrong.
Among those protesting at the BBC's Salford base was Maddie Summerfield of refugee rights campaigner Care for Calais. She says the BBC is already under the thumb of the government.
Silencing people like Gary Lineker and his colleagues is only helping to push that far-right narrative.
The story is by no means over, but by the show of public support after a week of stalemate, it looks like Lineker has scored a last-minute winner. Eleanor Fletcher, Quays News.
Manchester's rated highly for football, music and heritage, but recently it's gained an accolade that's not so sought after. The city is rated the worst place in the north of England for homelessness. 1 in 74 people have no place to live, but, as Harriet Muckle reports, some locals have made it their mission to tackle the problem.
Heat, eat or rent. That's the choice of many in Manchester. Official figures say 7,407 are homeless. Charities say it's down to the lack of social housing.
Why is the 1 in 74 people homeless? The root cause of that is that for decades now we haven't built social housing. And now what's happening in Manchester and other major cities is it's becoming unaffordable. Now we would always say, pay your rent because you need a roof over your head. But equally you need to be able to heat your home and your family needs to be able to eat as well. And we're seeing more and more families relying on food banks, more and more families falling behind in their rent.
Manchester City Council promises 36,000 new homes by 2032. Just under a third of these will be affordable. Socially rented? As many as possible, says the council. However, locals are making changes today. Emmaus provides homeless people a safe place in exchange for work.
So companions are people that have experienced homelessness and they live within our community and they contribute their time to the community. What we're finding, young single men, it's very, very difficult for them to get affordable accommodation and they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Young men like Jake. He told me he became homeless after a troubled relationship.
So I ended up on the streets and then I sought shelter here. We work 40 hours a week. We get our bills and our food paid for and we get £40 pocket money kind of thing. At the moment they're trying to get me into college and everything like that so I can get back onto my mechanics. It's my passion. I like working with cars. I like fixing them. It's just one of them things that I really enjoy doing.
Charity work means fewer on the streets, but such schemes can't solve everything, while most of Manchester's doors and even doorways remain firmly shut. Harriet Muckle, Quays News.
The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in the United States has left the financial world in a sticky situation. It's the second biggest crash in US history, but its effects are being felt by people all over the world. Here's Brendan Cox.
What can you buy for just £1? A loaf of bread, a bottle of shampoo, or maybe even a novelty keyring. But on Monday morning, HSBC bought a bank for £1. Not just any bank though, they bought the UK arm of SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, which went bust in the US over the weekend.
Why did it go bust? Well, when people deposit money in a bank, it doesn't just sit in a vault. Banks invest it. SVB was losing money because the mortgage bonds it had invested in were falling in value due to high interest rates. Dr. Ian Crowther at Alliance Manchester Business School explains what happened next.
These devaluations have continued to happen, and as this information has leaked out to the marketplace, then everybody's wanted to take their money out of the bank at the same time. Depositors wanted to withdraw. I think the figure was $42 billion they wanted to withdraw out of the bank over a 2-day period, which is a significant amount of money for any bank to be able to fund.
It wasn't just American tech companies that suffered. 3,000 UK businesses who banked with SVB were threatened when it ran out of money.
And those 3,000 businesses will now be funded by HSBC Bank. So there shouldn't be any problems with their funding going forward. It is one of the strongest institutions, so they should be very safe now. What we have to ask is those questions around regulation about what is actually happening within these relationships that the central bank or the regulator has with banks.
This problem could easily happen again. The race is on to find other ticking time bombs to avert future economic collapse.
With a £600 million investment promised by the government to school sports and after-school clubs in the next 2 academic years, I went out to the Albion Academy in Salford to catch up with a young and dedicated sports team who will hopefully feel the direct impact of this funding.
I felt like I had to actually kind of continue on and get another nice tackle, get another At 14, what we've tended to find on what we've seen over the years is, if you continue playing at 14, there's hope for you to continue playing actually as into a profession maybe, or it may be kind of.
So 14 is an important age.
Yes, 14 is a massive kind of age, because it's not just about the football. What we could have is a manager, a physio, scientist, somebody, a journalist. That just honestly.
Who inspires you in football? Have you got any female or male footballers?
Beth Mead.
Okay, can you say why?
I grew up in my mum's town, so I know her personally as well.
Yeah.
And she comes down with the girls and trains on the little pitch near the park.
Marcus Rashford.
Why?
I just think he's a really good player, he's confident, he makes me want to play.
There's more girls that have gone forward since Elias is winning.
I took PE as a subject, so it's kind of something I want to go into. Go for it, do what you want to do, be confident.
Does it make you feel confident?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I am Sophie Humphries and I play for Manchester Girls.
It's about the football, it's not about the skills, it's about the communication, it's about the togetherness, it's about the fitness. Somebody makes a mistake, you put your hand up, you half apologise and you move on, and everyone accepts that, because as in life, you make mistakes as you go along.
Simon Dow from Altrincham FC got back to me with a statement. He said the announcement that girls football will receive new funding to support extracurricular sessions and facilities is a huge boost to women's and girls sport. It will allow schools to bring in coaches, delivering girls-only sessions and provide girls with both the correct environment and support in sessions. This will encourage them to engage and thrive in football.
And now we head over to Thomas for an overview of the football in the North West.
Thank you, Adam. Now, Manchester City thrashed Red Bull Leipzig last night to advance to the quarter-finals of the Champions League. The Leipzig fans were seen walking through the centre of Manchester last night before the match, but it was the citizens who marched on to the quarter-finals thanks to 5 goals from Erling Haaland, who is the quickest player to reach 30 goals in the Champions League. Liverpool attempt to overturn a 5-2 deficit in the first leg versus Real Madrid tonight at the Santiago Bernabeu. The Reds landed it in the Spanish capital last night, but will be without Jordan Henderson, who is ill, and midfielder Stefan Bajcetic, who is injured. Jurgen Klopp said, whilst victory is not likely, it is possible. Now, non-league side Runcorn Linnet say they plan to sell over 400 tickets for their trip to Macclesfield on Saturday. Fans were picking up their tickets from the clubhouse this morning. The match will take place in the 8th tier of English football, which is the Northern Premier League West Division. Macclesfield currently sit top by 10 points. They normally welcome over 3,500 fans to their stadium, which is more than some teams in League One. But Runcorn fans have been advised not to purchase tickets in the Macclesfield end, as proof of address will be required on entry. I wonder if mascot Runcorn will be present for the big match on Saturday. Now, and we're going to have a look at Burnley's financial off-the-field issues now. They play tonight against Hull away from home. Johnny Bentley has more.
It's going to be a quiet night at Turf Moor tonight, with the Clarets playing away at Hull City. However, off the pitch, Burnley are at loggerheads with the EFL over some financial misadministration. In November, Alan Pace and the team at ALK Capital who run Burnley wanted to change their auditors, and they did change their auditors. However, in doing that, their collaborative efforts to keep the EFL informed with financial figures and so on and so forth hasn't quite kept up.
Now, with the leverage buyout that ALK underwent, that was pointed out with the change of auditors, I believe. That shouldn't have taken this long, which obviously, again, plunges the whole stuff into question. But, yeah, multiple sources have said that nothing serious. Fans and the club should expect it to be done at the end of next month.
Here's what the club have had to say so far. We can confirm that we have provided draft accounts and financial information to the EFL's Club Financial Reporting Unit, and we continue to have regular dialogue with the unit to ensure we remain as open and as transparent and answer any questions the league may have. We believe the EFL will have no issue with the detail of our accounts other than their late submission, and fully understand and support their position and efforts to sanction any club who fails to comply with any of their regulations.
I just don't really know what to make of it. It's just come out of the blue, hasn't it? It's just come out of nowhere. It could happen to any. I think it's happened to Huddersfield as well, hasn't it? So it's not just us who it's happened to, but it's just not a good look.
Alan Pace and team won't want to let this drag on, and they seem confident that a resolution can be found.
Thanks for the update, Tom. And finally, Adam, do you know where I can find a cocktail dress for this weekend?
Well, Paige, I don't own many cocktail dresses, but our reporter Daniela Chalice could help you find out.
For more people becoming aware of environmental issues, many have switched to more sustainable fashion sources, such as second-hand kilo sales, like the one happening right behind me. But a new way to invest into the sustainable fashion scene is online hiring apps and websites. But would this be something you could see yourself using?
I would use it. My sister uses it all the time. I think it's like By Rotation is the one she uses.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be interested in it. I think it'd be a good idea.
No, solely because I would not bring it back. I would not bring it back to the post office. I'd be too lazy.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like most people would be open to it. Like, it's a good way to save money.
According to Circulator Digital, the resale market is growing at a rate 11 times faster than of the fast fashion industry. But is second-hand renting actually that beneficial for the environment?
I think when you actually think about it, it is quite a good idea. But then when you actually delve into the impacts that it can have, like you say, the big distribution footprint of getting it shipped to people, and I think that does have an impact. But I mean, I would say it's probably not the most environmentally friendly, but I would say it is a move in the right direction.
A local Manchester rental site has discovered a new way to make the industry more environmentally friendly.
With a lot of the other fashion rental platforms, they do like delivery across the country. So obviously when one outfit's going from like one side of the country to the other, it racks up miles like in lorries and stuff like that. So we're trying to like keep it hyper local. So we're using like a bicycle service to deliver the outfits, and there's only like a certain radius where it can be delivered, just so that we can keep that sustainable aspect.
Thank you for watching.
Bye for now.